Okay, on to Resolution 2024-205. Somebody'd like to read it?
I can move Resolution 2024-205. This is a resolution approving the addition of fencing and formalization of existing use patterns concept plan at the dog park at Minnehaha Regional Park without a public hearing.
Second?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Musich.
Thank you, President Forney. I believe Carol has some images that she can pull up on the screen. Ms. Hellstrom is the project manager for this project. I've been getting a lot of emails that appear to have sparked, this appears to have sparked a lot of confusion for people. And so I was just hoping, Ms. Hellstrom, that you could walk us through, oh, you have a presentation. Awesome. If you could step us through what this project is, how it will proceed, who the surrounding landowners are, et cetera, I think that will be helpful as we go into this discussion.
Welcome, Project Manager Hellstrom.
Good evening, President Forney and Park Board Commissioners. So the area we'll be discussing tonight is the off-leash dog park within Minneapolis, or Minnehaha Regional Park, excuse me. So generally it's shown here in the area outlined in red is the area we'll be looking at. This does not, the area circled in red currently is not the footprint of the off-leash dog park, but is generally the MPRB owned parcel within this area of Minnehaha Regional Park. I want to note that this area is also within the Mississippi National River and Recreation Area. It was established in 1988. That is managed by the National Park Service. It's a protected corridor along the Mississippi River through Minneapolis and St. Paul. It's a 72-mile or 54,000-acre area. So the graphic you have in front of you shows the existing conditions. The area with the red hatching shows current fencing. The area, the yellow lines show existing trails within this area. And the pink faint line that you can see outlines the property line. So I want to note we do have, and I hope you're able to see my cursor, there is one existing access gate to this area, just off of the 54th Street entrance, or Minnehaha Park Drive entrance. The off-leash, the current off-leash area is shown as the more colorful portion of the graphic. I do want to note that there is river access along this corridor here. And so folks can access the river with their dogs. The land just to the west of this off-leash dog area is owned by the Department of Veterans Affairs. It is currently being managed by the National Park Service, who is going through a restoration effort within this area. I want to pause just to note and point out the presence of footpaths going towards the MPRB property and towards the state trail that runs through this area. I'll note that a number of users do park along Minnehaha Park Drive here and choose to walk across this property to access the dog park today. So the area that's highlighted is around 6.6 acres, and that's where dogs are currently designated to be off leash. Any other area within this park that is owned by MPRB or by others would be subject to dogs being on leash. So I wanted to also note some existing signage and map information. The sign to the left is some old, out-of-date signage that has since been replaced. You'll note that the off-leash recreation area is clearly marked here. Formerly, there was an off-leash footpath to reach the off-leash recreation area. However, the updated signage just to the right, after recognizing that off-leash dogs were present beyond that footpath, to reach the off-leash area, the signage was updated and is placed throughout the park. So here's just some images of the entry to the area and along with some trail signage. So again, you'll note at the main entrance gate, again, the signage being, clear of where the area is, directions to keep dogs on leash and to bag their waist, clearly marked. And then noting, along the trail, along the fence to the off-leash area, we do have off-leash recreation area this way. Personally, I would say, maybe the dog could be running towards it. That'd be great, but, there's always room for improvement, I guess. But again, there's also, the bottom right graphic showing, again, leash your dog, pick up their waist, shown through the park. And this graphic, or these images are showing the actual entrance to the off-leash dog area, again, where the area is shown on a sign, and then, signage also noting to leash the dogs anywhere outside of this area. Moving along, so once you're within the off-leash dog area, as I mentioned, there is river access in this area. The image to the left shows that right now. The image to the right showing the utility corridor is also generally where the MPRB property line boundary is. You can see that there is currently no demarcation or signage in this area, which has been leading to many people through, nearly 30 years of use of this area as an off-leash area, going beyond the MPRB property boundary and accessing land that does not belong to or is not managed by MPRB. I also want to note that there are some managed natural areas and areas of ecological significance within and immediately adjacent to the dog park area. One being a prairie remnant within the dog park. Currently, about half of that is fenced. Unfortunately, we do have a lot of off-leash dogs accessing that area and would like to prevent that access in order to preserve that prairie remnant. It's a really unique plant community. And then, the Hennepin County and State DNR also note the presence of maple basswood forest and black ash swamp seeps within the area, again, needing to be managed and protected. And so I'd like to, the graphic here would show some proposed conditions. So currently the off-leash dog park at Minnehaha Regional Park really does not meet a majority of the standards that we have at other MPRB owned and managed dog parks. So for instance, at the main entrance, the inclusion or the addition of a chicane style gate, so the double gate so folks can take their dogs off leash within that area, we would see adding that. We would also see, we understand that there is a lot of emotion tied to this decision. People's pets are part of their families, and so understanding the feeling of a sense of loss because the land to the west and to the south would no longer be able to be accessed. We're looking to formalize the remainder of the MPRB parcel, so this area to the north, we would want to formalize that as off-leash dog park. I want to note that, the prairie remnant you'll see here, fully encircled, is a portion of this area. It extends beyond the current trail into this area. And so really, again, that would be the reasoning behind the addition of fencing to block access to the north. As we move down here, though, to where the southern boundary where there's not currently fencing, where we'd be adding new, there's an area of upland here that would have, be the chain link immediately as we're installing this fence. There is a floodway, generally from this area down to the water's edge, where we need to seek regulatory approval from the authoritative body that would be Hennepin County. And so initially we would see adding the fence posts at a spacing that would be what you would see with chain link fence. However, as we are seeking review and approval through the county, the fence posts would have signage clearly noting the rules of how to properly behave in the area, to leash your dog anywhere outside of MPRB property, and then would also have some amount of cultural, interpretive signage as well. This area is very close in proximity to Coldwater Springs and Badote, and that's really the impetus behind a lot of the natural resource restoration that has taken place. And so again, helping folks understand the why this area is important. But however, we would, again, as I mentioned, seek that approval to add the chain link to the fence posts. And once we would receive that, we would add chain link and block access to the south. And with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you for that presentation. Oh, yes, Commissioner Menz.
Yes, I do have a question. Thank you for that presentation. That was really helpful. So according to the map, it looks like there wouldn't be any other water access for dogs. Is that what I'm kind of seeing?
It's a great question. The area that it currently is off-leash dog park that has water access, that would remain water access for dogs, off-leash dogs. And so let's say, the access eventually, once we would receive approval to add chain link to the posts to the south, and access will be blocked here, would people be able to wade into the water and choose to go around that? Yes. However, they'd be knowingly, breaking the rules and subject to enforcement at that time.
Okay, so there would still be, but there's no fencing over there. It looks like.
There's no fencing between the river and the MPRB owned property.
But they would, so the users would have to be leaving the fenced area in order to get to that space, or can they get to it from the south?
President Forney and Commissioner Menz, if a dog park user is trying to enter the MPRB property and MPRB off-leash dog area from Minnesota Historical Society property, they would need to go around to the main entrance gate.
So there's only going to be one entrance to the dog park, correct?
Correct.
I do have one question about the choice to do this without a public hearing, because I know that this board, we approved those procedures. What is the process that we go through to decide what things would not need a public hearing, or how we go through that in a process way? I could be mistaken. I don't think I saw this on a committee agenda. It went straight to the full board. So I'm wondering how we decide that in the planning department or in other spaces that this should not have a public hearing.
It's a great question. President Forney and Commissioner Menz, I'll do my best. I may seek assistance of Michael Schroeder as well. Really, thinking about this project, the reason that we are seeking concept approval from the board today is not to be able to add fencing to this parcel. The reason we are here seeking board approval is because we're looking to formalize an expansion of the off-leash dog area from 6.6 acres to the entirety, nearly the entirety of the MPRB parcel here. The reason we are seeking to do that without a public hearing is that, again, we see this as an enforcement issue or a rules issue of how this space is used, more than a major change to how, more than a major change or a new amenity. It's just changing what we have already.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to table this until a future meeting so that we can have a little bit more information around maybe the environmental impact of extending this by 4 acres. So it seems like it was kind of pushed here pretty quickly, so motion to table.
Not hearing a second? Am I hearing it? I'm not hearing a second, sorry. You finished then? Okay. Commissioner Elper?
Yeah, thanks. I guess I'd like to start off by asking, I'm curious, why is the National Park Service giving the park board money for this project?
President Forney, Commissioner Alper, thanks for your question. The National Park Service has been communicating with MPRB around folks and their dogs who are not following the rules for well over a decade. They're wanting this project to happen, and so, since the issue is originating largely on MPRB property or because of an MPRB amenity, that's why, MPS feels MPRB should lead the project, but they're supportive with funding for the project.
I have another follow-up. So you mentioned Coldwater Spring, and it sounded like that's an area of concern that dog park users are taking their dogs through there. But in looking at your map, if you don't mind pulling it back up, I'm not seeing that as an immediate adjacent parcel, correct?
President Forney and Commissioner Alper, you're correct that it is not an immediately adjacent parcel. I want to note that the Coldwater Spring area right here is owned and managed by National Park Service, again, who is managing the land that is owned by the Department of Veterans Affairs, which is directly adjacent to the MPRB parcel. So the site restoration and prairie restoration that's been happening or occurring within this parcel has been being completed by National Park Service.
Thanks. And then, so your slide, this one actually mentions a cost of $70,000 for the project, but in our resolution that we reviewed, it said 55. So could you explain the discrepancy?
Yep, that's a great question, President Forney, Commissioner Alper. We are estimating that the cost for the project will be above $55,000. The grant that we've received through the National Park Service is for $55,000. We understand that additional costs to complete the fencing would come from MPRB, regional park maintenance or regional park funds.
That's not in the resolution, though, that I saw. Is there a newer version?
The $70,000 amount is not included within the resolution. The resolution shows the National Park Service grant funding that we had received. It doesn't include a source from MPRB at this time, and that's just through error.
Okay. I guess I feel a couple things. Thank you so much for your comments. First of all, I know a lot of people are here to speak on this item tonight, so I think we would be remiss to vote on this prior to open time, so I won't be supporting this project if we vote on it prior to open time. Secondly, I think it's important from an accuracy standpoint, if for any resolution that we vote on, just in general, that it include all the items. Our board has power over the budget and what items are spent, and so I think it's important that quite frankly, that the resolutions that we vote on include the actual project cost, or that we see a match. So if the true cost is really $70,000, then we need to see that as commissioners, not just the revenue representing 55 out of 70 and the expenses being 55. The true cost is 70, and I think that's an issue that we've run into before on prior projects, most notably with North Commons, and so those are my comments at this point tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice President Benny.
Thank you, President Forney. Would you mind if you could put up the previous slide, just briefly? I think maybe it's the existing condition slide. Maybe that was the right one. There we go. So currently, the area that's being used as a park is outside of the red boundary, right, but toward the water?
My apologies, could you repeat the question?
The area that's currently being used by dogs is outside of the red boundary, but toward the water, to the north, essentially?
President Forney, Commissioner Benny, the formal off-leash dog area is shown here as the
Right.
more colored area. The area where dogs are accessing where we are being asked to prohibit would be to the south.
Yep.
And to the west.
But where
And
are they-
and we
where
are
are they-
looking-
Yep.
And we're looking to prevent access to the north as well.
To that one, okay, yep, okay, so, but they are currently accessing that one. And the fencing would exclude them from that space, but a question I would have is, that space is still accessible to anyone from just off the image here, right? In other words, you can still get to that section of beach, any person, that section of river, from over by the gate, correct?
President Forney, Commissioner Benny, the topography would prevent that. You could the fencing generally is along the ridge line.
Okay.
If you were to zoom out from this graphic and look towards where the incinerator is located in the South Plateau area, there is a set of stairs that goes down. You could also access this area if you were adventurous and coming from the creek area itself, where the
Okay.
creek empties into the Mississippi River. It is accessible, yes, but there's not a formal trail that would lead you there.
Okay, so this delineation does cut it off a little bit, though, I'm thinking about park users, with dogs on leashes and all other park users. And then down in the Department of Veterans Affairs properties, where the areas are of restoration, are dogs allowed on leash in that area currently?
Yes, dogs would be allowed
Okay.
on leash on both Department of Veterans Affairs property as well as Minnesota Historical Society property.
Okay, so, and then I think one more thing on the slide of the proposed condition. Yeah, okay, it's clear when you do it that way. So basically, the area that is being devoted to an off-leash location is actually, it is a significantly larger area. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Schaefer.
On this slide of proposed conditions, can you point out what percentage of the DNR Maple Basswood identified area is in the northern part of the dog park? With your cursor, or do you know a percentage?
That's President Forney, Commissioner Schaefer, that's a great question. I would hesitate to point something like that out on this map. Again, looking at this one, it's pretty difficult to read, and I apologize for the quality there. I do want to note that the addition of fencing to block off any natural sensitive areas, we are looking to field site the new fencing in the field with the contractor, myself, and along with natural resources staff. And so really outlining where those areas are that we need to preserve would be done in concert with natural resources staff. Again, wanting to avoid any impacts to healthy mature trees within any area of the park, and certainly wanting to make sure that we get all of the sensitive natural areas protected that they need to be.
Okay, so it's kind of TBD once you have more analysis.
There's finesse that needs to happen in the field, yes, that's
Yep.
how I would put it.
Okay, and will some of the sections of fencing that allow dogs to get behind and back around, will those holes be filled, like around the meadows and some of the other areas?
I think I understand your question to mean, will dogs?
I think there are ways that dogs can get behind the fencing currently.
President Forney, Commissioner Schaefer, we will do our best to close any gaps that exist. Will any amount of fencing be perfect and block off access for people and dogs for where we want them to not to be? No, this will not be a perfect solution.
Great. Thank you. I really appreciate the answer to those questions. And I guess what I would like to just point out, I walked this site yesterday just for my own visual, and it was very helpful. And I think what's very painful about this decision is that technically this area that we've called on leash, the northern section, is basically off leash. There is no leashing that happens there. So those that use this dog park are going to feel like this is a constriction. Even though it technically is an expansion from 6 to 16 acres, it's going to feel like a pretty large constriction, particularly if we have to, deal with some of the sensitive areas. So I am feeling the pain about this as a dog owner. It's beautiful back there, but I also realize that we have to be respectful of the National Park Service, and that really, if there is a desire for more dog activity along that line, really that should be directed, from my perspective, not to us, but to the National Park Service, and to advocate with them. So for me personally, just to share my viewpoint, I will be supporting this, hopefully with this potential amendment that Commissioner Musich has put forward. But I would also encourage dog users and dog owners. We are here to represent residents. And this is not my district, so I'm supportive of Commissioner Musich. But I would also be supportive if the National Park Service comes back with an idea to combine or do something on that corner with us. I think all of us would be very interested in hearing what that input may be. But our natural areas are something that we really support as a board, and as an area we really need to grow in. We have very limited urban natural areas, and so for us, this is like our gold as far as what we have to give to future generations. And I'm a dog owner, I'm a dog lover, but I will be voting in support of this with the understanding and communication that we want to be flexible and really do and have further discussions if they are opportunities.
Thank you. I'm going to move to open time now. Thanks to all of you who want to share your thoughts and ideas with us during open time. Before we start, I want to provide an abbreviated version of open time rules. All individuals wishing to speak may call in before noon the day of the meeting to be placed on the agenda, or can sign up at the board meeting prior to the start of open time. I will be calling on people on the sign-up list only. Open time for public input should not exceed a total of 15 minutes, with the time limit to be allocated by myself, the president. Please watch the timer up here to be considerate of others here to speak and stay within your allotted time. During open time, public testimony will be given without debate, and only clarifying questions from the board will be allowed. Two types of items not appropriate for open time in order to protect the privacy of all individuals are pending litigation and personnel issues. Please refrain from commenting on specific personnel issues. We will not tolerate discriminatory and/or harassing words directed at anyone, so please ensure that all your comments you make tonight comply with the policy. The board made the decision many years ago to operate under Robert's Rules of Order. Under Robert's Rules of Order, the ceding of time to another person is not allowed, so only those signed up to speak may only speak for their own allotted amount of time. We also request that each speaker provide his or her name and address. We have 22 speakers. I know everybody would like to speak, but unfortunately I'm going to have to then say 1 minute per person. So the first person is Constance Pepin, and after that is Cody Oliver.
Hello, Constance Pepin, Park District 6. In the interest of transparency, community engagement, and alignment with your mission and natural areas plan, please vote no on this resolution to expand the off-leash dog park. Minnehaha Regional Park is scheduled to go through a long-range planning visioning process in 2025, and making changes to the dog park outside of this process is premature. The 2022 memo that allows actions like this one without a public hearing does not apply here, because this action is not a renovation or maintenance. It's a major expansion from 6 acres to 16. Obviously, this action will result in a change in the location and extent of the current dog park. No question about that. So a public hearing is warranted. The resolution would also contradict the Public Park Board's goal to, quote, continually convene conversations between those with different priorities for the park. The Natural Areas Plan notes that most of the park is already maintained turf and developed, and that more acreage should be managed as a natural area. Why bother to have a natural areas plan if you will ignore it, as this resolution does? Thank you.
And I was going to say, if anybody has any printed comments and everything, feel free to drop them off to somebody up front here. So Cody, and then after that is Ard Van Asten. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your names. Oh, is Cody here? Arid? And then after that is Mark Scaly?
Am I allowed to give a handout at all?
Yes, here, sorry.
Hi, first time I'm doing this. I appreciate your time. Eric Van Asten, I live in the Morris Park neighborhood. I've been going to the Minnehaha Dog Park now with my dog for approximately 3 years. I've really enjoyed the space and really enjoyed the parks here. I just had a quick little handout for you to look at as you're thinking about this tonight, just with some key questions that I've been thinking about over the last couple of days. The first one is, will users of the space today have a significant change of use? I'm not just saying the park, but I'm saying the overall use. And I'm showing the overall map here that shows not only the MPRB property, but also the neighboring property that gets used. And will the user's expectations of the park significantly change? So when they walk into that dog park fence, will that change significantly from today? Which I believe it will, by taking out that large neighboring property that's used today. Why are we not showing a map with the typical use like we showed today? We're showing that cutoff map in all the presentations. But then the main ones here are, why have there been any, sorry. Yep,
Thank
and then
you,
the
Eric.
pictures on the website there show in the neighboring property, not on our property.
Thank you. Mark Scaly, and then after that again, Cody Oliver.
Thank you. My name's Mark Scally. I'm a board member of the Friends of Loring Park. I had more to say, but basically, my message is to thank you all for what you're doing for our beloved Loring Park. For funding the Burger Fountain, which is a huge project. The Twin Cities is not known for fountains, and we hope to make this a big showcase in our area. You've also helped us with new tennis courts in the last couple of years, new pickleball courts a year ago for consistent gardening help. For attendance at a recent board meeting by Superintendent Bangora and Commissioner Schaefer, we appreciate that attention, as well as by Assistant Superintendent Ringgold at a recent meeting to discuss ADA. You may know that we host both the Art Festival and the Pride Festival, which brings in 250,000 people per day on Saturday and Sunday. So helping us with parks. A shout out to Commissioner Schaefer for her help over the last couple of years, and also to Chief Otto for helping us with safety, which has been a problem over the years, but is greatly improved. Thanks.
Thank you. Cody, and then Mike Schumann.
Hi, I'll try to be brief. I got a lot of questions. I'm going to set those aside for now about the dog park project. What I would like to see is postponement of the project until we can get some better transparency and engagement to the dog park community. We've been left out of the equation completely. This basically was a bomb dropped on us literally 7 days ago. We don't know anything about it. We don't know what the stakeholder requirements are. We don't even know who the stakeholders are. But we know that we have not been engaged. We think that there's a better solution than the project that's being proposed. But to do that, we have to have transparency and we have to have engagement. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that was Mike?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Cody again, and then Ann Laughlin. Is Ann here? Oh, great.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ann Laughlin, District 5. The proposal to expand the dog park into an additional 10 acres of a natural area is obviously intended to appease the dog owners who can no longer will be able to take their dogs into off-leash areas that they were able to use before. But this plan to soften that blow is really abandons your mission and ignores the natural areas plan. The remnant maple basswood in the 10 acres under discussion is close to half of the maple basswood forest remnant that's left in Minneapolis. And the Natural Areas Plan recommends that more land in the park become managed natural areas. And the park board should prioritize preservation of this valuable forest remnant rather than sacrifice it for recreation. So we ask you to table this and hold a public hearing on this project, since it will clearly result in a change in the type, location, or extent of the current facility or service as defined by the park board. You're given that the project proposes to change the use of 10 acres of parkland. It's a huge change. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay Schmidt. And then after that is Michelle Garens.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Jay Schmidt. I'm one of those people who've been going down to this dog park for 30 years with my dogs. I appreciate your openness to having discussions, but if you vote yes tonight, a fence is going to be built, and it's going to leave out the opportunities to make the conversations happen that need to happen. So I'm going to ask you to vote no on this, so that a public hearing, for whatever reason you chose not to have that, can happen, and that can be input with not just the Park Service, but some of the other property owners that need to be involved in this, because frankly, the maps that we're seeing up here and that were posted, they don't show the whole picture. I think maybe the map that was handed out will give you more of the picture, but there's other issues involved in that can only be surmounted by having broader discussions and input from the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Michelle, and then after that is Nicole Schroyer.
Hi, I'm Michelle Garens. I live at 5525 36th Avenue South. I live in the area. I learned about this 4 days ago. I put a petition up online. So within 4 days, we've already gotten 1,200 some before this meeting of people that are really concerned about this. I think it was viewed over 5,000 times. So, 25% of the people were actively upset. And I did pass that around. There's a document of their names and everything like that within this. So I guess what I'm asking, first of all, is if any of you would like to walk the park and actually understand what is being lost for us as, people that have been in this park for over 30 years, myself 20, I would volunteer to walk you through. It's an amazing asset that we have for this city. It's unlike anything else that we have. It's my happy place. Some people like garden centers. I go here to meditate with my dog. I have an Irish setter. This dog takes a lot of activity. It's the only park I can take it to in the city. I also just want to make sure that we really understand what we're talking about. I think that the presentation today didn't do it justice. And so I want to make sure that you're really aware of what is at stake here for this city, because it's huge. So thank you.
Nicole, and then Mark Scaly.
Hi, my name is Nicole Schreier. I live in Eagan, Minnesota. I actually moved to that area because of the Minnehaha Dog Park myself. I think it's a really unique area that is different than anywhere else in the country. We do a lot of road trips with our dog, and we've never seen another dog park like it. So I think it's a really nice gem as a part of our city that we'd like to maintain. But I think most importantly, as you guys have seen here today, there's a lot of confusion around what this entails, and it was a really quick timeline. And so I think that's why there's a lot of voices around either postponing it or saying no to it in its current form. I think there is a right for the public to have a public forum to provide our feedback. We haven't been included in the conversation, as they said, and I want to say thank you to Commissioner Schaefer for going and walking the area. I think that's going to be key. I know you guys can't do that for every project here. You have a lot on your plates, but I do think it really opens the eyes in terms of how special this place is as a part of Minneapolis. So thank you guys for all your work.
Thank you, Mark. And then Sarah Dixon is next.
I already presented.
Oh, you were earlier. Okay, thank you.
Unless you want to give me another.
Oh, no, I see you. Thank you, Mark. Sarah, and then after that is Claire Wright.
Hi, this is my first time speaking at something like this, and I'm a little bit of a nervous public speaker, but this is so important to me. It absolutely shouldn't be voted upon without public input. I know all of us here who love the dog park go there multiple times a week, if not every day. It is my happy place as well. It is the dog's happy place, and it's Also, I know a selling point on it was that it was for the safety of the dogs, but I don't think that's a valid point at all. I think that lessening the area that the dogs are allowed to play will really bottleneck all the dogs together, and that's when dog fights happen. That's when people get injured. One of the beauties of this dog park is that dogs can run, and dogs that aren't incredibly social can run and be by themselves and be in nature. And I think that taking away a dog park and the joy that it brings the dogs and the people without the input of the community is really a bad move.
Thank you, Sarah. Claire, and then I think it's Chris Jensen. Yeah, Chris.
Can I ask a question about that, the diagrams that we've been looking at?
Sorry, we're not in a question and answer, please.
Well, there
Sorry.
was no opportunity.
Sorry.
What I didn't understand is on those maps, does that, the off-leash area extend down to what we call the point? No.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the part that's owned by the Historical Society?
Correct.
Did anybody talk to them? Okay.
That's why we need more.
Right, okay, so I guess that's just my point, we should bring them in too. And that park has been fairly neglected through all the years. I've made many attempts to try and get someone even to fix the front gate, which the wires are all turned and, oh yeah, we'll do it, but it's still not fixed. And then also it's very slippery in the winter there. And there's definitely steps inside to go down that are dangerous. So I'm hoping as Minneapolis takes this step that we take care of those dangerous things as well.
Thank you, Chris. And then Marissa, I think it's Provo.
Good evening. I'm Chris Jensen. I have been going to the dog park since 1998. My late wife and I have been going 5 to 7 times a week in that time. Ms. Schaefer was kind enough to actually visit the dog park last night. I encountered her. I greatly commend you for coming to see what it might be, but I will also say you only went up to the second gate, and what is being used for the actual park, it goes, what's proposed is beyond that, and what is actually used goes way down beyond that. So you haven't seen, and I'm going to guess if Ms. Shaver went last night, that maybe the rest of you, I can suggest you go and see what's happening. The sign of the proposed project was put up last Monday night, September 23rd, 5 p.m. I know, I'm there every day. I was there. It was confusing. It took people a while, but yet 1,000 signatures on a petition, Save Our Park, are there today. That is in 5 days. People's hearts are in this park. The diagrams that were shown show an expansion of the park, and that's what's in the word. The reality is no. I've been coming since 1998. For the last 26 years, that area, that first area you go in, is off-leash. There hasn't been a person that's had a dog on there in the tens of thousands of dogs that I've seen. It's not done. What is it? The proposal says it's going to adjust to actual use. Well, the actual use extends south down to the peninsula. Now we know that that's the Minnesota Historical Society land. I have to propose that
can you wrap it up, please?
we speak with the Minnesota Historical Society. If since 1998 I've been using that, I am a retired biology teacher, I'm a retired environmental science teacher. I know that peninsula and its ecology. Someone needs to speak with those people. If we're using their land, they have been saying no problem since 1998. It's 26 years that I'm aware of. People are incensed. One of the regular patrons is Governor Walz. Governor
Chris?
Walz comes 3 times a week. I know because I see him. Everybody sees him.
Chris, I apologize. You need to wrap
It's in
up.
his heart. This is an important part of his life, enough that he is coming with Secret Service protection now. It's that important. It's that important to me. It's that important to these people. The changes that are proposed are drastically changing what is now used.
Thank you,
It
Chris.
needs to be some kind of analysis of how is it being used, what can be done so that it could continue or modify.
Chris?
I will say one more thing. The protected prairie area, I'm an ecologist. I recognize that. The fence is incomplete. It needs to be extended so that area of the prairie is protected.
Thank you so much. Marissa, and then after that is Dan Hogan.
Yes, that's going to be a hard one to go after, but I agree with everything being said. It feels like there's not transparency on this. There's a lot of questions. One thing I've always liked about Minneapolis is listening to the people, and I think if you guys vote for this tonight, it feels like our voices are being stripped and not heard. And I love this dog park. It is our family's happy place. My dogs love it. Taking this away would be taking a lot from Minneapolis.
Thank you. Dan Hogan, and then after that is Barb Allen.
I appreciate the time tonight. I just want to reiterate what everyone's been saying. It's just really disheartening to see the lack of detail in this plan, especially given the timeline that's been presented. It really seems like our voices are not wanted as the actual park goers. There's also one specific comment I just wanted to touch on. Someone mentioned that everybody there is just letting their dogs run in the off-leash/on-leash areas where, my wife and I consistently have our dogs leashed to a certain point and then let them off, and as we're leaving, we leash them before we're out of the park, and there's a lot of people that do that, so I think that's a common misconception. I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Barb Allen, and then after that is, Chris. I'm sorry, Chris, I can't read your writing, but anyway, Cusack?
Hello, I'm Barb. I'm a regular park patron. I've been going down there for 20 years. I consider myself a good patron of the park. I'm constantly cleaning. You fence that crap off, there's going to be garbage down there. There's a flood zone. I personally myself have picked up over 40 bags of trash in that area last year. I'm on bag 20 this year. It's a lot of trash that just is in the park constantly. And that's what the deer, that's what the birds, that's what the fish are going to see. All those bottle caps, those straws, the syringes that we pick up, not to mention all the other crap that goes along with it. It took about 20 people all day to clean the shoreline because of all the bottle caps, straws, and syringes. And that was just one time. But we're down there every day cleaning up this trash. I would hate to see all that hard work go to hell because we're no longer able to get down there and clean.
So then Chris, and then after that is Eric Skinner.
Good evening, Chris Cusack, 4436 45th Avenue South. I'm a user of this dog park. I've been using it for the past 6 years or so. I love going there. If this fence is built, it'll be a significant detriment to my habits, to what I do with my dog, to running her and getting her good exercise. I know that's true for a lot of folks here and a lot of folks who aren't here. My main concern here tonight is how quick this process has gone. I don't believe this project meets the informed level of engagement. The de facto use of this park is much larger than the 6 or 16 acres. I understand that's off the park board's land. I understand that presents a conflict for you with the neighboring property owners. However, ignoring that and messaging it as if it's a growth of the dog park and that this isn't going to have a significant impact on people's use, on your constituents' use of this facility, ignores the truth. And I would urge you to vote no tonight and do more outreach and engage the folks who this is going to affect. Thank you.
Eric, and then Dan Hool.
Hi, my name is Eric Skinner.
excuse me, live in the Longfellow Park neighborhood. Thank you for the opportunity to share. Please vote no on this dog park resolution and allow for a public hearing. My wife and I call this our church. It's where I proposed. It's where we decided to get married. It's a very special place to us. As you can see, I'm passionate enough about this to interrupt my kid's bedtime to share my position. While there have been voices of 1,000 people signing petitions and arguing, hey, we need a public hearing for this, clearly within a week there's not been enough time for due diligence to provide that. There's a lot of potential discussion here, and in my opinion, there are actually some improvements that I do agree with in this plan. However, I think without a public hearing, it's extremely difficult to articulate that within the 60 seconds that I have. Please engage your constituents prior to making decisions, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. Dan Poole, and then after that is Megan Malloy, I think. Are you Megan? Okay, so Dan, is it Dan here? Megan, come forward then.
My name is Megan McCoy. I'm a Tangletown resident and have been coming to the dog park for the past 3 years. We bring our 2 dogs there and recently just started bringing her daughter. She's 8 weeks old and it is a really special place for our family. I reiterate what everyone has said today. This is a very special place for us, and I urge that you work with the public to understand how we use the space and what we can do to continue to make it better while preserving the natural land. So I appreciate the opportunity to vote no on this today and to allow us to have more conversation about how we can move this project forward in a more productive way for those that use the park. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Dusan. Is Kelly here? Oh, thank you.
Somebody left their phone. I just wanted to reiterate that I agree with much of what has been said, and I'll just stick to different topics that haven't been mentioned, and one of them is the visual blight of a fence, and also the effects that parceling up land and fencing it into little sections, the effect that has on wildlife. You are cutting off access to the water, or certainly limiting quite a bit, and that's something that goes along with the environment and ecology, and it doesn't seem anyone's touched on that. I'd also like to really point out again that the timeline of 1 week after decades of use this way, why is this suddenly an urgent issue that you are ramming through? You I don't know if you have made any effort to deal with MNHS or the National Park Service, but we certainly deserve time to make those contacts ourselves and work with them. Thank you.
So Dan Hooley and Cody Oliver, either one of you there, there, I believe, and Kelly, you just spoke.
I'm Cody Oliver.
Oh, Cody, go for it.
So I have a few quick questions. I suppose if you all, you're saying that you're protecting the neighbor's land, why aren't they the ones putting the fence up? If they don't want us on their land, wouldn't they be putting the fence up? Why are we taking this strange initiative out of the blue to protect their land for them? I don't understand that. I also think that $70,000 is a lot of money. Let's take that money to improve what's existing there and what's working well. Let's put it towards that rather than cutting the park in half. You're the Parks Department. You're supposed to encourage the parks to be better, not to limit them. Additionally, so if it's not about the neighbors wanting us to protect their land, maybe it's about protecting the land from like dogs and walking all over it. Well, how are we protecting the natural landscape by putting a fence right through the middle of it? What about all the animals that are going through there? You're cutting off these animals' access through there. There's a number of problems with it. I apologize, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Cody. One more time is Dan Hooley. Dan? Not seeing Dan here. Then we'll close our open time and move to back to our discussion. And I believe that Commissioner Thompson was up and all the other lights on. Go for it.
Thank you, President Forney. Can I have some questions again about this project? Sorry. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope whoever left their phone got it. You had mentioned that this was, or alluded to the fact that it was requested by other agencies to help us enforce the off-leash area. Is that correct?
President Forney, Commissioner Thompson, yes, that's correct. Of what I understand, for over a decade now, the Minnesota Historical Society and National Park Service have been reaching out to MPRB staff to better manage off-leash dogs and the off-leash dog park area.
So is this, so, I mean, when you say the word enforcement, I guess I'll just turn the phrase around. That's to say that the dogs are off-leash in an on-leash area, correct?
President Forney and Commissioner Thompson, if I understand your question correctly, I don't believe I used the word enforcement. I believe I used the word manage.
Yeah.
And so really the issue being off-leash dogs accessing property that is not owned or maintained by MPRB. Does that answer your question?
That does answer my question on that one. Thank you. Sorry, I have lots of notes and I can't remember which ones are for you. So this was being requested of us by the DNR, or excuse me, by the National Park Service?
President Forney and Commissioner Thompson, it's being requested in large part, yes, by the National Park Service and the Minnesota Historical Society.
Excellent.
Neither of which have indicated any desire to dispose of any of their property or grant an easement for the operation of a dog park on their property.
That's very helpful. Thank you. And I just want, for all of those that are here, I have been in this area many times, and I walked it like Commissioner Schaefer has, and I have thoughts on the other side, to be plain, of the wildlife impact. I was there, I saw deer, and then a dog came bounding in and scared the deer away. So there are two sides to every story, and I think that in our due diligence, we are trying to make the best of this situation, given that our partners, our land neighbors have requested this. I will support it. Thank you.
Vice President Abene?
Thank you, President Forney. I first just, I guess, would like to comment that I personally really need to respect the requests of the adjacent property owners. That's really important to me, that the Park Board doesn't perpetuate a land use that's impacting another entity's property, because the Park Board would not like it if it was reversed. The other comment is, you know, I've had dogs. I love dogs. I might be more of a cat person, but I do love them. But, you know, not everybody does. And some of the largest complaints we get, not in this area in particular, but is when people have dogs off leash in neighborhood parks. People do freak out sometimes. There are other users of these spaces that don't understand, they don't know the dog and they're not comfortable around the dog. So the comments about the fencing, yeah, the fencing's important to contain that use. And it's a sacrifice that the wildlife are being asked to make in those spaces because they can't get there. And so what we're saying then is, for this use, which I support this use, continuing a dog park in this location, but we're asking the wildlife to take an impact. And so what we're also trying to do, I think, is minimize the impact to the wildlife in that particularly magnificent space. So the other comment is, I guess one question I have for Carol is the delineation of the proposed fence line. Some of that is part of the reason why that area was selected along the property line, because that is a requirement for the Park Service to fund it, or could it be moved in? And here's where I'm going. I am actually concerned about leaving remnant spaces that aren't accessible for any use. I don't have this topography down, but if the current beach area or whatever, that shore area, is no longer very accessible to anybody, I don't like the idea of remnant spaces, and I'm concerned that maybe the dog park as proposed is too large. So are we trying to also align this new fence on the property boundary is that one of the driving factors about choosing the way we've proposed to fence it?
President Forney, Commissioner Abeni, thanks for your question. The choice to select the largely along the property boundary really is an effort to understand and respond to known concern and emotions around a feeling of loss that we knew to expect from dog park users. If you are referring to the small segment of fence that would prevent access to the area to the north of the dog park, that again would be there to protect sensitive and managed natural areas.
Okay, Commissioner Olson, I think you're next. I apologize if I've gotten everybody out of order.
Yeah, so I will be voting against this, and it's for one simple reason. Who put us in these seats? Who gave us the responsibility over this area? Was it the Minnesota Historical Society? Was it the National Park Service? No, it was our constituents. And 99% of them do not want this. None of them are asking for this. And as one mentioned, if these other organizations so badly want this area fenced off, they should do it themselves. We don't have to be the ones implementing this because our constituents do not want it. And it is indeed a really important crown jewel of our park system. I use it quite frequently with my dog. I really like it because, as another constituent mentioned, it's really nice for dogs who are kind of anxious to have this extra space. And they go in, and we are really, really making a small space by cutting it off. And if the Historical Society wants to do that, then they can do it. But we should not be taking this away from our constituents. And one of them is Tim Walls, and he was just there the other day with a big account. And so, even if you still think that it's really important that we take this away from our constituents, I would say that you should absolutely agree that this is not a consent item, and it's something that at this point clearly rises to a much higher level, particularly when you consider the de facto use of the space as opposed to some demarcated lines that have not really been relevant for the last 30 years. And I will just say, as far as the prairie remnant, it is important that we, totally fence that off, although in all my years of going, I have not seen a single dog in that area. It's not appealing for folks to go there, even the fence. They go in, we kind of go down to the beach, and then there's some kind of areas in the woods with some different paths that kind of lead down to the end that folks use. A lot of folks don't go up into that prairie area. And so when we're also talking about nature, yeah, okay, a deer was scared off by a dog, but a lot of animals, go around at night. If we fence off and have everything close off, as another constituent mentioned, that's going to be awful for movement of animals, and it's going to create a lot of fractured different areas that have no biological value for the greater landscape. And so I would just kind of urge all of you, all of my fellow commissioners here, to please consider what our constituents want and what they're asking for, and to prioritize them in this decision, not the Minnesota Historical Society.
Commissioner Mance for a second time.
I also frequent this area. Thank you, President Forney. I've been there many times. I do have different opinions about the space for my own dogs because my dog doesn't like to come back to me. So I'm always terrified that he's just going to end up down the river or something. But I don't think that we can support this as a board because it just feels like bad governance. So I don't know where the leadership comes in to put things on the consent agenda, or where we lose touch with our constituents so badly that we misinterpret the importance of a space. I'm not saying that we shouldn't change this space. I'm not even saying we shouldn't put the fencing in. But this is real quick, and our constituents deserve to have input. And if there's one thing I have done on this board as an elected, it's that we need to trust our citizens and we need to turn over the keys a little bit more, and this is a great example of where that we can do that. So I will be voting no to this resolution. Hopefully, we'll get a better plan.
Commissioner Musich.
Thank you, President Forney. So I've had a lot of contacts from people over the years about this space. I was originally elected to office in 2013. I was sworn in 2014. And almost immediately, people started reaching out to me about encounters they had had with off-leash dogs outside of the off-leash dog area. And this is largely due to a effort by our neighboring landowners to change the traditional land use or historical land use that had been occurring in those places and starting to make them an amenity. That amenity is a national park space. It is a Minnesota Historical Society location that also is a sacred space for the indigenous people of Minnesota. And they have all expressed to us at the park board that they want to see off-leash dogs remain within the boundaries of the off-leash dog park, or at a minimum, within the boundaries of the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board property in this location. Not a whole lot was done to achieve that, other than changes in signage, gov delivery pushes reminding people that they needed to leash their dogs outside the space, and those were ineffective. We continue to receive complaints, and they've continued to reach out and ask us to do something about it. And that's not just the park system, but it's also other users that don't use the park for an off-leash dog use at all. And they want to be able to use it in a way where they feel safe, and they don't feel safe around dogs off-leash. And that's part of why state parks require you to have your dog leashed. They want to be welcoming. They want to make sure that people feel safe. And part of that is ensuring that animals are under the control of their owners when they're in those spaces. We don't manage these other lands. What we do manage is the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board owned lands. And what we're trying to do with this resolution, I believe, is to make it very clear to people where the off-leash dog park is that we created and that we maintain and that we operate, so that our neighbors are not dealing with the unintended impacts of the fact that we chose to make a dog park without actually designating visually any way that there's a dog park and where it is, other than to say, there's a dog park here, and here's a sign, figure it out for yourselves. That was unfair to people to allow the assumption that all land in that general vicinity was an off-leash dog park. It may be used that way by people, but that's not what it is. We did ask our partner agencies if they'd be open to an expansion of the dog park onto their property, and the answer was no. People can take that up with them directly if they'd like, but the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board was unable to make any headway in that regard with our partners. And at this time, I'd like to propose an amendment to this resolution, and to do so, because I missed the deadline for submitting it, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for the purpose of considering this resolution. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion on that?
There is no discussion on
Oh, thank
suspension
you.
of the rules.
That's right.
It's a
Thank you.
roll call vote.
Okay, all those in favor of suspending the rules?
Roll call.
It's a roll call vote.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Alper.
No.
Commissioner Menz.
No.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Olson.
No.
Commissioner Rucker.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Vice President DeBenny.
Aye.
President Forney.
Aye.
You have 6 ayes, 3 nays.
Thank you. We have suspended the rules to listen to your amendment.
Thank you. At this time, I will make a motion to amend Resolution 2024-205 I would like to add the following language to the existing recitals. Whereas mapping of natural resources and rare species of Carver, Hennepin, and Scott counties is prepared by the Minnesota County Biological Survey and is published by the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, 1998, identifies an area of maple basswood forest oh, I messed this up. Sorry. In and near the existing proposed off-leash recreation area. Whereas the MPRB's Natural Resources Management Plan, Phase 2, June 2021, identifies approximately the same area as a portion of Minnehaha Park worthy of restoration. And then also add the following resolve clause. Resolve, the Board of Commissioners directs staff to conduct a field review of conditions identified by the mapping of the natural resources and rare species of Carver, Hennepin, and Scott counties and the MPRB's Natural Resources Management Plan Phase 2, and adjust fencing proposed for the off-leash recreation area to avoid sensitive plant species to the greatest degree practicable. May I speak to the resolution, President Forney?
Would you like a second first?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Second?
Yes, go right ahead.
Wonderful, thank you. The reason that I'm bringing this forward this evening is because the language of the current resolution did not spell this out, that this would be part of what was going to be done. Staff are interested in continuing to support the work that's called for in the Natural Resources Management Plan, and I wanted to make sure that it was clear in the resolution that this work would occur in addition to the fencing proposal.
To the motion, Commissioner Albert?
Yes. So I voted no to suspending the rules to hearing this amendment, not because, I think the content is quite worthy, so appreciate you bringing this forward. I wanted to make sure you know that. But honestly, I would think that we as a board hold the resolutions that come before us to a higher standard. And so even with this one, to conduct a field review and adjust the fencing proposed, those all have a financial impact. And I know this board cares about that. And so I'm kind of astounded that nobody here spoke to the original resolution and the fact that the amount of funding that's proposed to be spent does not match the language of the resolution does not match what has been in the Star Tribune, what was in the presentation to us today. And so I find that concerning because that is what I see as the number one responsibility that we here have as a board, to guide and steward the finances that we have as an organization. So I find that unfortunate. And I'm just going to use my time here to just conclude my thoughts since you're on me. So thank you, if that's all right. So I represent District 3. District 3 is an area with extensive fencing. Extensive. You think Franklin and Cedar, all up and down Franklin under the underpasses. Any vacant lot is full of fencing. And you know what? Doesn't work at all. Doesn't work. People, just like what Commissioner Schaefer said, that there are holes in the existing fence that we have at the dog park. There are holes in the existing fences that have been put up around my neighborhood. And it's ugly and it looks horrible. And we have spent thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on a project that accomplishes virtually nothing. And I would say it's akin to cutting down the trees to try to get rid of the squirrels. So I think that's, in essence, what we're doing with this project, and therefore I'm going to be voting no tonight.
Commissioner Olson to the amendment.
Yeah, so to the kind of financial and staff implications, maybe Assistant Superintendent Barrick, perhaps? I'm not sure whose purview this reporting would be under, but my question is exactly, at this point, how many staff hours do we estimate that this amendment would add to their workload? If there's anyone who can answer that for me, I would appreciate it.
President Forney, Commissioner Olson, and Commissioners.
In looking at the amendment, I don't know. It could be as simple as a site meeting with the right people looking at the plans and the current conditions, coming up with a solution, and then, cost estimating that change. So I would guess anywhere from 4 hours to 20, I would think, somewhere in there. But again, this is just a guess off of.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, it's obviously a last minute thing here. This has all been kind of quick, so don't expect completely precise answers, but I think that just goes to the point that this is all a bit premature and we don't have a full understanding and implication of how this would strain our already overstrained and overburdened staff and resources to determine how to mitigate something that we don't even necessarily need to do in the first place. And so that's why I would be voting against this specific amendment until we kind of get further details. And also my other concern here is that, yes, this additional fencing, this additional off-leash area would be to mitigate, obviously, the significant loss that folks would be feeling by losing access down the beach along the Minnesota Historical Society area. To the point there, but if we do this process and we go through and we find valuable species, which I'm sure we will, basically opening that up to any sort of human and dog activity will be a disturbance. And so I could see it very easily be found that this new proposed area should not be implemented at all. And then we're left with almost no dog park at all. And it's a complete loss of this space and the utilization for our constituents. And so I get the intention of this, and I think it is placed in the heart and the logic of it is in the right area, but at this point, I just don't think it is up to muster with typically what we expect of ourselves at the Park Board.
Thank you. Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, President Forney. Per the amendment, which is what we're speaking toward, many of us on this dais right now were yesterday at the, I don't know if you could call it the Badote tour, the tour of various sacred spaces. To our Native American population. And this is certainly, were it not cut off by 55, 62, Fort Snelling, all the like, would be part of that as it extends. In fact, where we were literally extends by path through this area back into Minnehaha Falls. I personally, Becca Thompson, my sensibilities are not to put up a fence because I would like to see the natural resources protected as they are intended to at current. The fence is really at 2.5 times the size plus, enlarging the dog park. I agree with this resolution, with this amendment, that I think it's important at the same time to understand the impacts. And I've already stated this, but I'll just state it again. I don't understand the purpose of a public hearing. I'm fine with accepting this today because of the fact that we are giving neighbors the totality of our legal space. And that to me is a lot because we're fencing off our neighbors, which we've established they asked us to do and they're paying for. So thank you for this amendment, Commissioner Musich.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes, I just would like to clarify from staff that the resolution will have the financial updates clarified before it is filed in our library, if this motion passes. Deputy Project Manager, maybe she left, had to leave.
President Forney, Commissioner Schaefer, we will do that.
Okay, thank you. And then the other thing I just would like to say is, just for me as a commissioner, if there are any other areas in our park system, in the whole park system, that have been kind of grandfathered into a kind of use that is not in compliance with our standards, all of our dog parks, as far as I'm aware, are all fenced in. And so it becomes very painful for the community and for us as commissioners representing that community when we have inconsistencies like this within our system. And I'm sorry to hear that Commissioner Musich has been dealing with this for a decade. When we have inconsistencies like this between our policy and common use, we need to clean it up. And that's my message for myself and for all of us in the room, that I am sorry that this was not dealt with sooner, but I think it is the right decision and the hard decision. And would like to see if there's any other situations like this flushed out now.
Vice President Abeni to the amendment.
Yes, to the amendment, I think I support this. I support making sure that we understand the impacts to the natural resources and conform as much as we can to the natural resources management plan that's already been adopted. I'm a little uncomfortable with some aspects of this where we don't have all the detail, but I do have a question perhaps for Assistant Superintendent Schroeder, but I want to speak to the Minnesota Historical Society land. Why would they own land? Like, do they typically own land? They don't host parks and things, or some certain sites are park sites and things like that?
Flood zone, for sure. That's what they own, a flood zone. I think you've got a whole misconception of the space that we're asking for. We're not asking for up above.
Excuse me.
President Forney, Commissioner Benny, I can't speak to the ownership of the Historical Society. In the last probably 2.5 years, our more direct contact has been with the National Park Service, and that has been extensive for a period, I think, of probably 2 or 2.5 years as we've been trying to move this forward.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Oh, Council Rice, yes.
To Commissioner, Madam President, to Commissioner Benny's question, our recollection on this, because the Park Board was involved in extensive litigation at Fort Snelling because of the land we own at the Neiman Field and the golf course, other properties there. The Historical Society obtained that property back in the 1950s when it took over the Fort Snelling property. And they were arranged to, the legislature, my recollection is, gave them title of the property, which is pretty extensive, but it's related to the reconstruction of Fort Snelling, which was probably one of their first major land pieces. And in fact, the Historical Society owns property throughout the state on a fairly large scale, actually. They tend to be buildings, but they do own other tracts of land throughout the state, and they're because of history. Yeah. And obviously that land that's where the United States government came and set up the fort, and really shortly after the Louisiana Purchase, and established a presence of the U.S. Army and surveyed the area, and has been there since.
Thank you for that clarification. Not seeing any other lights, I will then, I think maybe it's best for us to do a roll call on the amendment to the resolution. Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Alper.
No.
Commissioner Menz.
Aye.
Pardon me, was that nay or aye?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Olson.
No.
Commissioner Rucker.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Vice President Benny.
Aye.
President Forney.
Aye.
You have 7 ayes, 2 nays.
That action carries. So on to then to the main resolution. Not seeing any other lights and everything. I'll take a roll call vote then on the resolution, amended resolution.
Commissioner Alper.
No.
Commissioner Menz.
No.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Olson,
No.
Commissioner Rucker,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Vice President Benny,
Aye.
President Forney.
Aye.
You have 6 ayes, 3 nays.
That action carries.